My name is Alex Thompson. I'm 29 years old, and for the last 6 years, I've been working as a project manager at a mid-sized tech company in Chicago. On paper, my life looks stable. Good salary, decent apartment in Lincoln Park, routine I can count on. In reality, I'm just going through the motions. Most days, I feel like I'm stuck in a loop I can't escape. After my mother passed away 3 years ago, I threw myself completely into work to avoid dealing with the emptiness. I've become the guy who stays late at the office, takes on extra projects, and rarely makes time for anything personal. Friends have started calling less. My social life is almost non-existent. I tell myself it's just a phase, but deep down, I know I'm avoiding something bigger. That rainy Thursday evening, I was at O'Hare Airport, waiting for a delayed flight back from a client meeting in New York. The terminal was crowded and chaotic. I stood in line at a coffee shop, exhausted and mentally drained, when someone behind me spoke. Alex? Alex Thompson? I turned around and saw a woman standing there, mid-20s, with warm hazel eyes and shoulder-length dark brown hair. She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her. She was wearing a simple cream sweater and jeans, holding a travel bag, and smiling at me with a mix of hope and nervousness. "You don't remember me, do you?" she asked softly. Her voice hit me like a distant echo. Something stirred in my chest, but the memory stayed just out of reach. I smiled awkwardly, trying to be polite. "I'm sorry. I feel like I should know you, but I'm drawing a blank." She studied my face for a moment, then gave a small, understanding smile. "It's okay. It was a long time ago." We stepped aside as the line moved. She told me her name was Emily Harper. The name felt like it belonged to another lifetime. We started talking while waiting for our drinks. She was flying back to Chicago too. The conversation was light at first. Weather, delayed flights, how tiring travel had become. But there was an undercurrent of something deeper in the way she looked at me. As we walked toward our gate together, fragments of memories began flashing in my mind. A small lakeside town in Michigan. Summer nights. A girl with braided hair who laughed easily. A promise made under the stars when we were both teenagers. Suddenly, it hit me like a wave. "Emily?" I said, stopping in the middle of the busy terminal. "From Lakeside, the girl who used to sit by the dock every evening?" Her eyes lit up. "You remember." A flood of memories came rushing back. We had spent one magical summer together when I was 17. She was 16. We talked about dreams, shared secrets, and on the last night before I left for college, I had promised her forever. I told her I would come back for her, but life happened. College, new city, new responsibilities, and eventually I convinced myself it was just young love, nothing more than a summer romance. And now, 12 years later, she was standing in front of me at Chicago O'Hare Airport, looking at me with the same gentle eyes I had once known so well. "I can't believe it's really you," I said, still trying to process everything. Emily gave me a soft smile, but there was sadness behind it. "I saw you standing there and thought, maybe he'll remember. It's okay if it took a minute. A lot of time has passed." We stood there in the busy airport, surrounded by rushing travelers, as the past and present collided in the most unexpected way. That single moment, her simple question, opened a door I thought I had closed forever. I had no idea that this unexpected reunion was about to turn my entire carefully built life upside down. We ended up sitting together on the flight back to Chicago. The 3-hour journey felt like minutes. Emily told me she had moved to Chicago 4 years ago for her job as a graphic designer. She had built a quiet life here, a small apartment in Wicker Park, a close group of friends, and a career she genuinely enjoyed. There was a gentle sadness in her voice when she spoke about the years that had passed. I kept stealing glances at her, trying to connect the girl I remembered with the woman sitting beside me. She was still kind, still quick to smile, but there was a quiet strength in her now that hadn't been there at 16. When the plane landed, neither of us seemed ready to say goodbye. We walked through the terminal together and ended up grabbing a late dinner at a small Italian place near the airport. Over pasta and wine, the conversation grew deeper. "I waited for you," she said quietly, looking down at her glass. "For almost 2 years after you left for college. Every summer I went back to the lake, hoping you'd come, but you never did." Her words hit me hard. I felt a sharp pang of guilt. I remembered the letters I wrote in the first few months, then the excuses, then the silence as my new college life took over. I had convinced myself that what we had was just a teenage summer fling. But sitting across from her now, I realized how deeply I had hurt her. "I'm so sorry, Emily," I said, my voice heavy. "I was young and stupid. I thought life would be simpler if I just moved forward. I never forgot you. I just buried the memory." She gave me a small, forgiving smile. "I didn't come looking for an apology, Alex. I saw you at the airport, and something inside me just wanted to know if you remembered. That's all." That night, after I dropped her home, I couldn't sleep. Memories of that summer kept playing in my head. Late-night talks on the dock, her laugh echoing across the lake, the way she looked at me when I made that promise. "I'll come back for you. I promise. Forever." The next morning at work, I was distracted. My team noticed I had an important presentation coming up for a major client, but my mind kept drifting back to Emily. I told myself it was just nostalgia, nothing more. I had a stable life now, a routine. I couldn't afford to let old feelings complicate everything. But 2 days later, Emily texted me. A simple message. "It was really good seeing you again. No pressure, but if you ever want to catch up properly, I'd like that." I stared at the message for a long time before replying. That single text opened the door wider. We started meeting for coffee during lunch breaks. Short conversations turned into longer ones. She showed me her design portfolio. I told her about losing my mom and how work had become my escape. With every meeting, the connection I thought was long dead started feeling alive again. But the timing couldn't have been worse. At work, I was up for a big promotion. My boss had been hinting that the next 6 months would be critical. I was also casually dating Sarah, a colleague from the marketing team, for the past few months. Nothing serious, but comfortable. Now everything felt uncertain. One evening, as Emily and I walked along the Chicago River, she stopped and looked at me. "I didn't come back into your life to mess things up, Alex. But when I saw you at the airport, it felt like the universe was giving us a second chance. The question is, do you want one?" Her words hung in the air. I didn't have an answer yet, because remembering her also meant remembering the boy I used to be, the one who believed in forever. And I wasn't sure if that boy still existed inside the man I had become. That question from Emily stayed with me for days. "Do you want one?" I threw myself into work to avoid thinking about it. The big client presentation was approaching, and my boss, Mr. Gem, had made it clear that this project could decide my promotion. I stayed late every night, perfecting slides and strategies. Sarah, the woman I had been seeing, noticed I was distracted, but didn't push too hard. We had a casual understanding. Dinners, movies, occasional weekends together. Comfortable, safe, no heavy promises. But Emily was different. Every time we met, the past felt more alive. One Saturday afternoon, we drove out of the city to a quiet park by Lake Michigan. As we sat on a bench watching the water, memories came flooding back in vivid detail. I remembered the summer we met. I was staying with my grandparents in Lakeside, Michigan. Emily lived in the small town year-round. We met at the public dock, where she went every evening to draw. She was artistic even then, always carrying a sketchbook. We spent hours talking about our dreams. She wanted to study art in Chicago. I wanted to build something big in the city. On our last night together, under a sky full of stars, I held her hands and said, "One day I'm going to come back, and we'll have a life together. I promise you forever." I had meant it with every part of me at 17, but then college started. New friends, new opportunities, and the promise slowly faded into just a summer romance. "I kept that promise in my heart for a long time," Emily said quietly, looking out at the lake. "Even after I stopped waiting, I never forgot the way you made me feel seen." Her honesty broke something inside me. I felt guilty, ashamed, and strangely hopeful all at once. We sat in silence for a while. Then she turned to me. "I'm not asking you to leave your life, Alex. I just wanted you to remember. The rest, that's up to you." That night, back in my apartment, I couldn't stop thinking about her. I pulled out an old box from my closet. Things from my grandparents' house. Inside was a small leather notebook. On the last page was a drawing Emily had made of the two of us sitting on the dock. Below it, In my teenage handwriting, I had written, "Forever starts here." The next few weeks became a quiet storm. I continued seeing Sarah, but my heart wasn't fully in it. Emily and I kept meeting, sometimes for quick coffees, sometimes for longer walks. She never pressured me. She was patient, kind, and funny, in that gentle way I had almost forgotten. With her, I felt like the old version of myself was waking up again. But reality kept pulling me back. Work pressure was mounting. Mr. Reynolds assigned me to lead a high-stakes project with a tight deadline. Sarah started talking about making our relationship more official. And in the middle of all this, Emily sent me a message one evening. "I found some old photos from that summer. Would you like to see them?" I knew opening that door further would change everything. The boy who promised forever, and the man I had become, were now standing on opposite sides of the towns. Same decision. And I had no idea which version of me was going to win. The weeks that followed became increasingly complicated. Work turned into a pressure cooker. Mr. Reynolds gave me full responsibility for a major software implementation project for one of Y biggest clients. The deadline was tight, the expectations high, and failure wasn't an option if I wanted that promotion. I was working 12 to 14 hours a day, often taking calls late into the night. At the same time, Sarah began pushing for more commitment. She wanted us to move in together, to make things official. She was kind, ambitious, and we got along well. On paper, she was perfect for the life I had built. But every time I was with her, my mind drifted to Emily, to the easy conversations, the shared history, and the unfinished promise that now felt heavier than ever. Emily never demanded anything. She understood I had a life, a job, and possibly someone else. We continued meeting occasionally, sometimes for lunch near my office, sometimes for evening walks along the river. With her, time felt different, slower, more meaningful. She showed me new art exhibitions, made me laugh with stories from her design work, and listened patiently when I talked about losing my mom and how work had become my way of coping. One evening, after a particularly stressful day, I canceled plans with Sarah and met Emily instead. We sat on a bench in Millennium Park as the city lights came on around us. "I feel like I'm living two lives right now," I admitted. "The one I built, stable, planned, safe. And the one I'm remembering with you, the one where I once believed in forever." Emily looked at me gently. "I'm not here to destroy what you have, Alex. I just couldn't walk past you at the airport and pretend nothing happened. That promise we made, it was real to me, even if it wasn't to you anymore." Her words stung because they were true. I had convinced myself the promise didn't matter, but sitting with her now, it mattered more than I wanted to admit. The conflict inside me grew stronger. Sarah noticed I was distant. During dinner one night, she asked directly, "Is everything okay with us? You've been somewhere else lately." I lied and said it was just work stress. The guilt was eating at me. I was hurting people without meaning to. Sarah in the present, and Emily because of the past. Then came the breaking point. My company had a big team-building weekend at a resort outside Chicago. Sarah was invited as my +1. The night before the event, Emily sent me a photo from that summer. The two of us sitting on the dock, smiling like the world belonged to us. The caption simply read, "Still believe in forever?" I stared at that message for a long time. The boy who made that promise felt closer than ever. But the man I had become, the one with responsibilities, expectations, and a carefully built career, was terrified of what remembering her truly meant. I was standing at a crossroads. One path was safe and familiar. The other path was uncertain, emotional, and filled with the risk of breaking hearts, including my own. I didn't know which way I was going to turn, but I knew I couldn't keep walking both paths at the same time. The weekend at the resort became the turning point. On Saturday night, while everyone was celebrating at the team dinner, I stepped outside for some fresh air. Sarah was inside laughing with colleagues, but I felt completely disconnected. I pulled out my phone and looked at Emily's last message again. "Still believe in forever?" That was when I knew I couldn't keep running. I called Emily. She answered on the second ring. "I need to see you," I said. "Tonight." 2 hours later, I was standing outside her apartment in Wicker Park. When she opened the door, I didn't waste any time. "I remember everything," I told her. "The dock, the stars, the promise I made, I was scared back then. Scared of growing up, scared of failing, scared of loving someone that much. I convinced myself it was just a summer thing, so I wouldn't have to face how real it was. But it was real, Emily. You were real. Tears filled her eyes as she listened. I hurt you, I continued. And I've been hurting myself by pretending the past didn't matter. But it does. You do. We talked through the night. I told her about Sarah, about my fears, about the promotion I was chasing. She was honest too. She had dated other people over the years, but had never felt the same connection she had with me. She had built a good life, but something was always missing. The next few weeks were messy, but necessary. I ended things with Sarah honestly and respectfully. It was painful for both of us, but it was the right thing. At work, I focused hard and still managed to deliver the project successfully. I got the promotion, but strangely, it didn't feel as important as it once did. Emily and I took things slow. We didn't rush back into romance. Instead, we rebuilt the friendship first, the foundation we had lost. We went back to Michigan one weekend and sat on that same dock where we had made our promise 12 years earlier, this time as adults. On a warm evening in late summer, I took her back to the same spot by Lake Michigan where we had talked months earlier. The sun was setting, painting the sky in beautiful colors. I took her hands and looked into her eyes. 12 years ago, I promised you forever. I broke that promise. But if you'll let me, I want to spend the rest of my life keeping it. I got down on one knee and opened a small box. Emily Harper, you are the girl I never forgot. Will you marry me and let me love you the way I should have all those years ago? She was crying and laughing at the same time. Yes, she whispered. 1,000 times yes. We got married the following spring, in a small ceremony, by the lake in Michigan, the place where our story began. My father was there. Her family flew in. It wasn't extravagant, but it was perfect. As we stood by the water after the ceremony, Emily touched my face and smiled. You finally came back, she said. I pulled her close and whispered, and this time, I'm not going anywhere. Sometimes life gives you a second chance in the most unexpected place, like an airport terminal on a rainy day. One simple question. You don't remember me, do you? Brought back the girl I once promised forever to. And this time, I was ready to keep that promise. The first year of marriage was both beautiful and challenging. We moved into a cozy townhouse in Lincoln Park together. Emily turned the spare bedroom into her art studio, filling it with sketches, paints, and the quiet creativity I had always loved about her. I continued my role as regional project director, but I made a promise to myself, and to her, that work would no longer consume my life the way it once did. We faced real struggles. I still had moments where I retreated into silence when stress hit. Emily sometimes worried that I might disappear again, like I did when we were young. We learned to talk through those fears, instead of letting them grow. We attended couples counseling for a few months, not because we were broken, but because we wanted to build something strong on the foundation of our second chance. One of the most healing moments came when we went back to Lakeside, Michigan, for a quiet anniversary trip. We sat on the same old dock at sunset. Emily brought her sketchbook, just like she did when she was 16. As the sky turned orange and pink, she showed me a new drawing, the two of us sitting on that dock, older now, but still holding hands. I used to draw this moment in my mind when I missed you, she said softly. I pulled her close. I'm sorry it took me so long to find my way back. She smiled and rested her head on my shoulder. You came back. That's what matters. Life wasn't perfect after that, but it felt complete. We supported each other's dreams. I helped her launch her own small design studio. She encouraged me to take more time off work and travel with her. We even started volunteering together at a local youth art program, helping teenagers who reminded us of our younger selves. 2 years after our wedding, on a quiet evening at home, Emily told me she was pregnant. We both cried tears of joy. As we sat on our balcony, overlooking the city lights, I realized how far we had come. From an airport reunion and a simple question, you don't remember me, do you, to building a life together. The girl I promised forever to had become the woman I would love for the rest of my days. Sometimes the best love stories aren't the ones that begin perfectly. They're the ones where someone finds the courage to remember, to forgive, and to finally keep the promise they once made with all their heart. And I was finally keeping mine. 5 years had passed since that rainy day at O'Hare Airport, when Emily asked me if I remembered her. Life had settled into a beautiful rhythm we never could have planned. Our daughter, Lily, was now 3 years old, a bright, artistic little girl, with her mother's hazel eyes and my stubborn smile. Watching Emily with her was one of the greatest joys of my life. She would sit with Lily for hours, drawing pictures and telling stories about the lake where we first met. Sometimes I would join them, and we would talk about promises, the kind you make when you're wrong, and the kind you keep when you're older and wiser. Work had changed too. I was still in a leadership role, but I had learned to set better boundaries. No more 14-hour days. No more missing dinners and weekends. Emily's influence had taught me that success meant nothing if I lost the people who mattered most. We still went back to Lakeside every summer. The old dock had been repaired, but the memories remained untouched. On our most recent trip, Lily ran ahead of us with her little sketchbook, trying to draw the sunset just like her mom used to. Emily and I walked behind her, hand in hand. "You kept your promise," she said softly, leaning her head against my shoulder. "I did," I replied, "and I'll keep it every single day for the rest of our lives." That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I realized something profound. The boy who made that promise under the stars never really disappeared. He was just waiting for the man I had become to remember him, to remember what it felt like to love without fear, to hope without hesitation, and to believe in forever again. Emily had never stopped believing, and because she didn't, I finally found my way back to her. Sometimes the greatest love stories begin with a simple question in a crowded airport. "You don't remember me, do you?" And sometimes, the bravest thing a person can do is answer with their whole heart, "I do now, and I'm never forgetting again." 10 years after that fateful reunion at O'Hare Airport, our life had grown into something truly special. Lily was now 8 years old and had a little brother, Noah, who was 3. Our home was filled with laughter, drawings on the fridge, and the kind of warmth I never imagined I would have. Emily's design studio had become quite successful, and she balanced work with motherhood with a grace that still amazed me every day. We had faced real challenges along the way. There were times when my old habit of burying myself in work tried to return. There were moments when Emily's old fears of being left again surfaced. But we had learned to face them together. We kept a small tradition alive. Every year, on the anniversary of our airport meeting, we would write each other a letter about what forever meant to us now. Those letters had become our most treasured possessions. One quiet evening, while the kids were asleep, Emily and I sat on our balcony with a glass of wine. She was wearing the same simple necklace she had worn the day we met again, a small reminder of that summer long ago. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked her, waiting for me, giving me another chance. She smiled and shook her head. "Never, because the man who came back to me was even better than the boy I fell in love with. You didn't just remember me, Alex. You chose me, every single day since then." I took her hand and kissed it. That night, as I watched her sleep, I thought about the journey, from a heartbroken teenage promise, to years of separation, to an unexpected reunion in a busy airport. One simple question had changed everything. "You don't remember me, do you?" Those words had brought back not just memories, but the best version of myself. The version that still believed in love, in second chances, and in keeping promises. And as I lay beside the woman I had once promised forever to, I whispered the same words I had said to her all those years ago on the dock. Only this time, I knew I would keep them until my last breath. "I'm here, and I'm never leaving again." Our story wasn't perfect. It wasn't a fairy tale, but it was real. It was ours. And it proved that sometimes the greatest love stories are the ones that find their way back home after many years. 15 years had passed since Emily asked me that life-changing question in the airport. Our children were growing up fast. Lily was now 13, artistic, independent, and full of dreams, just like her mother had been. Noah was 8, and already showing a love for building things, much like I did at his age. Our home in the suburbs of Chicago had become a place filled with creativity, laughter, and the kind of love that grows stronger with time. Emily's design studio had expanded into a small creative agency. She worked on projects she was passionate about, and still made time to teach art classes to underprivileged kids on weekends. I had moved into a senior leadership role, but had negotiated better work-life balance. Days of sacrificing everything for my career were long gone. I still faced challenges, of course. Life doesn't stop testing you. There were health scares with my father, periods of financial stress when the agency was growing, and the usual arguments that come with any long marriage. But we had built strong foundations. We never went to bed angry. We kept dating each other, weekend getaways, quiet dinners, and annual trips back to Lakeside, Michigan. One summer evening, we took the kids to the old dock where our story truly began. Lily and Noah ran ahead, excited to see the lake at sunset. Emily and I walked slowly behind them, hand in hand. "Look how far we've come," she whispered, leaning against me. I squeezed her hand. "All because you had the courage to ask me if I remembered you that day," she smiled. "And because you had the courage to answer." As the sun dipped into the water, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. The boy who made a promise had finally become the man who kept it. The girl who waited had become the woman who taught me what real love looked like. Later that night, after the kids were asleep, Emily and I sat on the porch of the small lake house we had rented. She rested her head on my shoulder and said something I would never forget. "I used to think forever was a word teenagers say. Now I know it's something you choose every single day. And I choose you, Alex. Every morning, every night, always." I kissed the top of her head and replied, "And I choose you, the girl I promised forever to, and the woman I'm lucky enough to grow old with." Our story had come full circle. What started as a forgotten promise had become a lifetime of love, family, and second chances. And as I looked at the woman sleeping peacefully beside me that night, I realized the greatest truth of all. Sometimes you have to lose someone to truly understand how much they were meant to be in your life. And sometimes, the universe gives you one more chance to get it right. I was grateful every single day that I had taken that chance. 20 years after that rainy day at Chicago's O'Hare Airport, I stood on the same dock in Lakeside, Michigan, where I had once made a promise as a 17-year-old boy. This time, I wasn't alone. Emily stood beside me, her hand in mine, her fingers still fitting together perfectly after all these years. Her children, Lily, now 21 and studying art in New York, and Noah, 18 and getting ready for college, were laughing with their grandparents nearby. The lake looked exactly as it did when we were young, except now it held the beautiful weight of our shared lifetime. Emily turned to me with that same gentle smile that had captured my heart decades ago. "You don't remember me, do you?" she teased, repeating the words that had changed everything. I laughed softly and pulled her closer. "I remember every single thing," I whispered. "And I fall in love with you all over again, every time I do." We had built a beautiful life together. Not a perfect one, but a real one. We had raised 2 wonderful children, supported each other through career highs and lows, celebrated anniversaries, comforted each other through losses, and never stopped choosing one another. As the sun began to set over the lake, painting the sky in the same colors it had all those years ago, I felt a deep sense of peace. The boy who promised forever had finally kept his word. The girl who waited had found her forever. And the man who once forgot had remembered. Emily rested her head on my shoulder and said quietly, "Thank you for coming back to me." I kissed her forehead and replied, "Thank you for never stopping believing that I would." As our family gathered around us for photos, I realized the deepest truth of our story. Some promises are meant to be broken, so they can be remade stronger. Some loves are meant to be lost, so they can be found again when we're finally ready. And sometimes, one simple question in a crowded airport is all it takes to bring 2 souls back to where they always belonged. You don't remember me, do you? I remembered, and I would never forget again.